जस पंजाबी देख रहे हो इस सारे दर्शकों ਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ The Good News Show, which means it's Friday, weekend ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਣ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ and of course ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਨੇ ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਜੁੜ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਮੇਰਾ ਫੇਵਰਿਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੈ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਸਿਰਫ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਤੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਟ फ्राइडे का दिन है इस प्रोग्राम तो बाद मेरी तो छुट्टी बट एनीवेज अज मैं तुहाडे लई बहुत ही स्पैशल प्रोग्राम लेके आई एंड आई नो तुसीं सोचदे होने कि मैं हमेशा ही कहनी हाँ हमेशा ही बहुत ही वधिया प्रोग्राम हुंदा बिकॉज वंस अगेन आपां पॉजिटिव चीज़ां दी गल कर रहे हैं वधिया लोकां दे वधिया काम नूं हाईलाइट कर रहे हैं बिकॉज ये चीज़ बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है जो कोई वधिया चीज़ करता है भावें वो साडी कम्यूनिटी तो होए कम्यूनिटी तो बाहर दा होए बच्चा होए बजुर्ग होए उन्हां नूं जरूर रैकगनाइज करना चाहिए उन्हां नूं शाबाशी देनी चाहिए ताकि उस चीज़ ਲਈ ਹੋਰ ਇੰਸਪਾਇਰ ਹੋਣ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਇੰਸਪਾਇਰ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਗੈਸਟ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈ ਹਾਂ ਅਗੇਨ ਵਿਚ ਆਈ ਲਵ ਆਈ ਨੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਰਫ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਸੁਣਨ ਦਾ ਮਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਦੀ ਕਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਗੈਸਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਸੁਣਨ ਦਾ ਮਨ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੋ ਆਈ ਬ੍ਰਿੰਗ ਗੈਸਟ ਐਂਡ ਇਸ ਹਫਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਹੋਏ ਸੋ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਦੀ ਮਾਂ ਤੋਂ कौन ज़्यादा प्यार कर सकता है कोई नहीं कर सकता राइट सो मावां दा प्यार इन्ना स्पैशल हुंदा है तो इस एपीसोड दे विच एक माँ ने मैनू रीच आउट किया पर्सनली उन्होंने मैनू कहा कि मेरा बेटा बहुत ही वधिया काम कर रहा है सेवा कर रहा है तो ये सेवा इहो जी हैगी जिहदे नाल एक पर्सनल इंडिविजुअल तौर पर भी तुसी बंदे नूं शाबाशी दे सकते हो एक कॉज नूं लैके भी बहुत वड्डी अचीवमेंट हो रही है तो जो इस वेले माहौल बनया होया है लोकां दे विच कोविड करके या इकोनॉमी करके उस चीज़ दे विच भी इंपैक्ट हो रहा है बेटे दा सो मैं क्या ऑफ कोर्स तुसी मैनूं जरूर दसो कौन तुहाडा बेटा है उन्हां दे नाल गल करांगे उन्हां नूं इस शो ते लैके आवांगे सो दैट्स हाउ द स्टोरी स्टार्टेड सो मैं ज़्यादा नहीं गल करांगी मैं तुहानूं सिर्फ ये दसना चाहती हाँ कि सेवा साडे भावें तुसीं कह लो इनग्रेनड है साडे बैकग्राउंड दे विच साडे कल्चर दे विच सिक्खी दे विच सेवा सिनोनिमस हैगी बट सेवा दे किन्ने रूप हुंदे हैं एंड सेवा तां ओही हुंदी है जो दिलों तुसीं कढ के कोई चंगा काम करदे हो किसी होर लई सो यही साडा अज शो इस चीज़ से फोकस करूगा सो विदाउट एनी फर्दर ड्यू मैं तुहानूं अपने गेस्ट दे नाल मिलाना चाहती हाँ प्लीज़ जॉइन मी इन वेलकमिंग फ्रॉम कैलिफोर्निया मिस्टर जोयती सिंह विंटी जी तुहाडा प्रोग्राम दे विच स्वागत सत श्री अकाल
Sat Sri Akal. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you, Vinti ji. I'm so glad कि तोड़ी mom Joyti जी ने reach out किया. She was so excited. उन्होंने कहा आशमीता बेटा मेरा बेटा बहुत वधिया काम कर रहा है. मैं चाहती हूँ कि तुसी उन्हें ज़रूर highlight करो. And वो पहली बार ही नहीं कर रहा होता लगातार इस चीज़ नू करदा रहंदा है ते ज़रूर इस चीज़ नू अपा cover करना चाहिए. So I said of course I'm happy to do that. So Vinti ji. You are by profession or you work in healthcare administration you're in the Bay Area but जो आज reason करके तुसी इस program दे विच आए हो that is this entity that you've created Seva Cycling right तुसी shirt भी पाई हुई है screen ते लिखी सारी information साडे viewers वेख सकते हैं इस project नू लैके विंटी जी tell us what is Seva Cycling
So Seva Cycling is basically what it sounds like, Seva through cycling. And so I started cycling about 6 years ago. Completely not an athlete, not in any kind of shape. I was actually quite overweight, and I started cycling as a means of exercise. And I just took my old bike out of my garage one day and went around the block. And I had so much fun. I just kept on riding around the block every week and. I was increasing my distance and I thought, I really like this. And I was feeling, like I was getting good exercise, but it didn't feel like exercise. I was just enjoying it, being outside and, burning off stress and getting fresh air. And, I was starting to lose a little bit of weight. And I thought this is better for me than, paying for the gym membership that I wasn't using or running when I didn't like running very much. Our people don't run, we stand and fight. So I didn't like running and other forms of exercise. So this really became my big hobby. And so as I was increasing my biking I decided to enter a race, and the race was for charity. And so I signed up for this charity race for the American Diabetes Association locally. That was my first race in 2014. And I finished the race, and I raised about $2,500 from friends and family and community members who donated to support me. It was only 30 miles at the time, but for me, 30 miles was a long distance. I'd never done anything like that before. And so I realized then that, this is also a good way for me to do Seva. I can enter these charity races and pledge to ride a certain distance, and hopefully people will support me by giving a donation to these charities that I'm riding for. And I never see a cent of that money. I don't touch it at all. It goes to the charities, but they're doing it out of support for me, and so that's also very humbling. And so that's what Seva Cycling is about. It's cycling, but for the purpose of Seva. And it's not about me. It's not about trying to make myself known or famous or anything like that. It's really about helping the charity and putting our efforts to good use. So one thing I learned is that we can, kind of what you said, Seva can take any form, and we can turn anything into Seva. And so why shouldn't we? Why couldn't we? Why couldn't we make everything around us a better place? And in many ways, Seva is supposed to be selfless, but it inspires me. And when people support me, it pushes me to get through really hard parts of a ride, to take on new challenges, to raise funds for charities that I think, who's going to support this? But people support it. And the amazing thing also is that people across community support it. So my friends from work, my family, other Sikh community members, people who I've never heard of. So many anonymous people support these rides. So that's also very, it makes you feel good that there's good news and good people out there that want to do good things.
Absolutely.
And, like your show is about, it's about, good stories. And these good things happen. We just don't see them in the news all the time.
And I'm so glad, you're funny because the first one was only 30 miles. Pretty quickly I'll get to where you're at now in terms of distance and some of your recent charity rides. But 30 miles is not a small distance. I mean, agar koi pave regularly cycle chalanda bhi hai, that is not a small distance. So congratulations to you. But Vinti ji, jadon cycling di gall aandi hai, right? So in our Sikh community, there are, as of late, recently sanu hor vekhan nu milda hai fitness di taraf hor jo ithe mainstream United States ya Western countries which mainstream is tarah di activities han, or there's thodi ji participation in things like running, for example, right? Like there's 5Ks that are held as charity 5Ks from gurdwaras, from Sikh organizations, but cycling de vich inni zyada saadi aapa keh sakde ha presence nahi hai community di. I mean, I can't think of one major cycling competition or event, or even some of the more frequent ones that you see maybe locally in your cities and towns, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹੋਣ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਦੇ members participate ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਣ. So tell us a little bit about how ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੋ, how you are representing the community in this activity as a result of Seva Cycling.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, when you watch any bike race on TV, you'll see largely it's one community that participates. It's largely, the European or Western or white community that participates, and you hardly ever see any non-white, and you'll never almost see an Indian or a Sikh participate in these bike races. We have competed in Olympics or Olympic trials, but you never see us there. So part of also the Seva behind Seva Cycling is to represent our community at these events. And these events, these races that I participate in, happen all over the United States all the time. But you can count on one hand among thousands of people how many Sikh people are there. And because we're wearing these cycling uniforms and all the gear, you can't even tell sometimes, but we know when we see each other somewhere, and I've rarely seen another Sikh there. So I thought, I want to represent our community. I want the non-Sikh community to see that we are also participating, that we contribute to these events, but I want also our community to see that we can do these events. that cycling is not something out of reach for us. It's something maybe not traditional for our community. It is an expensive sport sometimes to get into, but once you're in it, it doesn't feel expensive. But we can participate in these things, and we can represent. So it's good for our community to see each other there, and then it's good for the non-Sikh community to see us there. And oftentimes I'm in these races, or I'm training with a group, and I'm the only Sikh, and we have so many conversations about who Sikhs are and what we believe, and people don't know. And it's these everyday interactions that you can reach a new population of people, and then they become ambassadors for us, and they can help tell our stories, and let people know about us. So that's also the other side of the Seva, right? That helps us build community, inside and outside.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it better myself. Vinti ji, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਲਈ ਇੱਥੇ ਰੁਕਣਾ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਜਾਓ। ਵਿਊਅਰਸ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਰਹੋ। ਕਨਵਰਸੇਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੰਟੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਰੀ ਰਹੇਗੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਉਸ ਪਾਰ। Break the baad side, the swagat hai tusi vekh rahe ho The Good News Show, and the good news is that it's Friday finally. But also kyunki Good News Show hai, that means sort of like bahut hi vadiya ji story feature te guest leke aaye hain as always. So please ek bari fir tusi bhi mere naal ral ke swagat karo to Mr. Joyti Singh, California to sade naal jude hain. Joyti ji, welcome back to the program. Tusi sanu das rahe si kis tarah tusi initiative shuru kita, Seva Cycling. It's really a fantastic thing that you're doing, and just na tusi sanu das rahe ho, ede multi-purpose benefits han. Of course, it's a fantastic physical activity. Tusi sirf 6 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ you went from ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ in terms of cycling to today you're riding hundreds of miles, and I'm going to get to that. I haven't gotten there yet, but in addition to that, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੈਰਿਟੀ ਲਈ ਪੈਸੇ ਰੇਜ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਰਕਲ, ਆਪਣੇ ਨੈਟਵਰਕ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ, ਐਂਡ on top of that, because ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇੰਨੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਸਰਕਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਸ almost non-existent ਹੈ, right? So there's so many good things to cover here. Recently you've done some rides, ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ viewers ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, your first one was 30 miles, which I think ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੁਣ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ, unless they're in cycling, that is not a small amount, right? To do that, especially I'm sure ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਉੱਥੇ terrain ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਉੱਚੀ ਨੀਚੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ, and there's mountains, so 30 miles in the California mountains, I can only imagine ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ physical fitness ਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ level ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, but today you're at a whole nother level. ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ level ਦੀ rides ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, and a couple of the more recent ones you've done, and what the benefit has been to the cause that you've been doing these for.
Yeah, it's a good question. I started with, a 30-mile ride, and that was the biggest, challenge I could have ever faced at that time. And today, 6 years later, I look back at 30 miles, and I could do 30 miles after work one day if I wanted.
Oh my gosh.
But what that also tells is that anybody can do it if they want to do it. And I was, when I started, very overweight, and I still did the 30 miles, and a lot of people do it. So. It's not unachievable. It is a long distance, for sure. But just if we wanted to drive 30 miles, we think 10 times before doing it. But people can do it. And so just over the years, I continued to train and increase my distance and increase the challenges. I started doing 60-mile races, and then then I started doing 100-mile races a few years after that. So. I just kept on increasing the challenge, and when you love something so much, it becomes not just work, but you enjoy it, and you want to do it again, and you want to do it again, and so it just became a natural thing. So now the last ride I did was just this past weekend, when I rode from Sacramento to San Francisco, and that was 107 miles.
That's the route we can see on screen as well. So that's 100 miles you rode. Once again, tell us, Sacramento to San Francisco. My God.
Yes. Yeah, and it was 100 miles. Now, this wasn't a formal race. Now, most races these days have been canceled because of the pandemic and social distancing. And so I got tired of sitting at home and not being able to ride. And I thought, I'm just going to do my own. And so I just got on Google and I plotted that map, tried to figure out where I can, rest every 20 miles or so and fill up my water bottles. And my mom, she's my biggest fan. She called you about it without telling me. And she wanted to get involved, and so there's my mom.
That's
there.
That's a picture of your mom. Yep.
Yeah, she's happier than I am, but she decided to support me. So she and my sister got in our van and followed me the whole route, just making sure I was okay. And I definitely needed their help at times because I got lost. But yeah.
Oh my God! You didn't have your GPS pulled up on the bike.
I did have my GPS. I had a little GPS on my bike, but I missed a turn somewhere and just got way in some country road. So it was a different challenge this way because it wasn't an organized event and I was doing it on my own. But I had their support for sure. So that made
And how long did this ride take? This particular Sacramento to San Francisco that you just did?
Yeah, so I was pedaling. Just pedaling time was 7.5 hours, which is about average, I think, for me.
Okay.
But the whole time, was about 10.5 because, at every rest stop, I'd sit with my mom and sister and we would just relax and chat, and we were on our own schedule, so it wasn't like a race.
Yeah.
So it was a long day. You could see when we finished, it was nighttime.
Yeah.
But it was quite a long day, and we were all pretty tired by the end of it. But it was rewarding. So
I can only imagine. And the reward wasn't just obviously the personal sense of accomplishment and जिन्नी तोनू अपने आप ते proud गर्व feel होया होना that you did this. You actually have a tangible amount in terms of what you raised. Folks who supported the cause, supported you, who wanted to help in some way. And ਭਾਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ अकेले ride ਕੀਤੀ, you didn't do it officially like you have in the past or some of the earlier ones. But you were able to still make a dent in helping a really important organization right now. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so this ride I did as a fundraiser for an organization it's a campaign called No Kid Hungry by an organization called Share Our Strength. And what they do is they address food insecurity for children across the United States. And they provide grants and funding for programs, all across the country and for schools to provide lunch programs for kids. And so when the pandemic happened and schools were shutting down and closing, a lot of kids who depend on school lunches for meals weren't able to get them. And this organization provided grants to keep these lunch programs open. And so that kids, even if they were at home, could come to the school, pick up a bag of lunch, and go home, and they would get some food.
Wow.
And in our community, food is so important, and meals are so important. And it really spoke to me in terms of what can I do to help during this pandemic, especially hungry kids, and in a way that would be meaningful. And what this organization has done in terms of being able to deliver food, $1 they've been able to scale to 10 meals.
Wow.
And so people donated for me. They donated through me to No Kid Hungry, $2,200.
Wow.
And so you can look at how many meals that's going to fund, how much advocacy that's going to do. And so that's really what makes me happy about it is
मैं viewers ਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ if we have the image of the donation amount because ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੁਝ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ supporters ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਨਾਮ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. So tell us a little bit about the folks that support. Of course, on this list I saw your mom and your dad, and I'm assuming your siblings, but there's some other members of the community. Tell us about this particular initiative. How did people come out and show their support? Was it an easy phone call? Did you have to do some convincing? How did you get the support for this one?
Yeah, my general tactic is to be as annoying on social media as possible. And so I set a goal. Actually, my goal $1. I thought, who's going to donate out of nowhere? And I put this out about a month ago, and I said, okay, if I raise $1,000 in a month, I'll be happy. But I raised almost 1,000 within the first week or so, and I just kept posting requests for donations, telling them what I was going to do, sharing about this organization, No Kid Hungry, and what it does. And so people I know, with not just my family, but our family friends, supported. A lot of people who I've cycled with, they've supported and donated. Some people from work and people who I've worked with in the past, they've supported. And then there were a lot of anonymous people who I don't even know.
Wow.
Well, there are anonymous people I don't know, and then there are non-anonymous people who I still don't know.
You still don't know, but you're drawing, you're drawing, support from all avenues, which is really amazing. And once again, it speaks to the fact that this is something, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹੋ, ਦੇਸੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਗੋਰੇ ਹੋ, ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਡੈਫੀਨਿਟਲੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਵਿੰਟੀ ਜੀ, I have to stop again for another break. Please don't go anywhere. Viewers, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਜੁੜੇ ਰਹੋ, ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਇਸ ਪਾਰ। Break the baad ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ The Good News Show and of course that means weekend ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਣ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ and it's a good weekend ਵਧੀਆ ਮੌਸਮ no crazy winter weather yet ਇਹ ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਬੜਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਥੋੜੀ ਜੀ ਗਰਮੀ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਰਿਲੀਫ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਰਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਹਲੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈਗਾ but ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਥੋੜੀ ਜੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ then ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੀ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਦੀ ਹੈ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਾਂ ਰੋਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜੋਇਟੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਸੇਵਾ ਸਾਈਕਲਿੰਗ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਜੋਇਟੀ ਜੀ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਬੈਕ ਟੂ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਰੀਸੈਂਟ 100 ਮਾਈਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਾਈਡ ਕੀਤੀ ਬਾਈਸਿਕਲ ਤੇ ਸੈਕਰਾਮੈਂਟੋ ਟੂ ਸੈਨ ਫ੍ਰਾਂਸਿਸਕੋ ਐਂਡ ਯੂ ਰੇਜ਼ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਮਨੀ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਲਈ ਜੋ ਇਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਜੋ ਫੂਡ ਇਨਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਦੀ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਅਫੈਕਟ ਕਰੀ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲੋੜਮੰਦ ਹਨ ਬੱਚੇ ਇੰਪੋਵਰਿਸ਼ਡ ਫੈਮਲੀਜ਼ ਜੋ ਸਕੂਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਲੋਕੀ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਰੱਬ ਦੀ ਮਿਹਰ ਹੈ ਫॉर द ਮੋਸਟ ਪਾਰਟ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹੋ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੰਸਰਨਸ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਪੋਵਰਟੀ ਲਾਈਨ ਤੋਂ ਥੱਲੇ ਫੈਮਲੀਜ਼ ਐਂਡ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਖਾਣ ਪੀਣ ਦਾ ਮੇਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਸੋਰਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਆਫਟਨ ਟਾਈਮਸ ਉਹ ਸਕੂਲ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਐਂਡ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਕੂਲ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਓਪਨ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਨ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਦਾ ਫੈਲਾਅ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੋ ਇਨਕਮ ਮੈਂਬਰਸ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੀਸੈਂਟਲੀ ਫੰਡ ਰੇਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਯੂ ਰੇਜ਼ਡ ਓਵਰ $2,000 ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਨੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਦੈਟ ਇਜ਼ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ your strategy is to be as annoying as possible on social media but ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਨੋਏ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਮਿਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ right and from all across the board Winty ji I want to talk a little bit about the physical aspect of this right because of course ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਨੇ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਇਜ਼ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਪੈਸਾ ਹੋਏ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਵੀ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਹੋ ਸਿਹਤ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਡੈਫੀਨਿਟਲੀ ਉਹ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਨੈਗੇਟਿਵ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਈਟ ਸੋ tell us a little bit about ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਈਕਲਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਚੇਂਜ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋਇਆ and you went literally in 6 years from never having cycled before ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ brand new ਸੀਗੇ you weren't physically fit to now ਤੁਸੀਂ 100 ਮਾਈਲ ਉਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਆਰਾਮ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਈਡ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੋ right so tell us about the physical fitness journey and ਮੈਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੀ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਐਂਸਿਸ ਦੱਸੋ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਗਰ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਫਿਟਨੈਸ ਜਰਨੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੈ right ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ
Yeah, it's a good question because a lot of people ask me how did you do it and what was your secret and and the one thing I'll start just answering that question is find an activity that doesn't feel like exercise. Find something that you enjoy, and that's what's going to keep you coming back. So there are tough days when you feel like I don't feel like exercising or working out, and you don't let yourself talk yourself out of it. But if you love something enough, if you're enjoying it enough, you're going to come back to it on your own. You don't have to push yourself to go to the gym. You don't have to argue with yourself to go for a run. Yeah. And so I had tried various different types of exercise. I tried going to the gym and getting a trainer, and I tried running, and I played ice hockey, but I gained weight playing ice hockey because I was eating more than I was playing. Oh my gosh. When I started cycling, I just enjoyed it so much. and that became not just a workout, but for me it was like how I had fun. And so I always tell people, find something that you have fun with. It could be yoga, it could be going for a walk, it could be whatever, right? It could be just aerobics, or it could be soccer, whatever. Find some activity that you enjoy, and it'll build on itself. So when I started cycling, I was about 70 pounds overweight.
Wow.
And just over time, as I was cycling, I was enjoying it, and I wanted to get faster, and I realized I needed to get lighter. And so I started watching what I was eating, and just being careful and adding more vegetables to my diet, and trying to limit how many calories, in a safe way. And I lost about 70 pounds.
Wow.
in 5 years, and
wow. And
it was not
healthily. I mean, it doesn't seem like you did like some crash diet or some really extreme measure. It was a slow but steady and healthy process. I mean, it seems like एक चीज़ definitely दूजी नाल connected है. जो तुसी physically अपने आप नू उस चीज़ ते focus करना शुरू कर दिंदे हो, automatically तोड़ा ध्यान खान पीन ते भी, lifestyle ते भी, ये सारी चीज़ां ते अपने आप ही पैना शुरू हो जाता है. Resulting in an overall healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, and you're happier with your life too, because you're able to do things, and you're not thinking, oh, I can't do it because I'm not in shape. You'll eventually get there. And the other thing I do tell people is don't look at the number on the scale as your goal. Don't look at this size clothes as your goal. Those are the things that give us instantaneous reward or instantaneous sadness, right?
Yeah.
But the success is in the process, and the success is, okay, I made a new habit that I'm eating breakfast, a healthy breakfast every day. Yeah. That is the success. And then the consequence is you're going to feel better during the day. You're not going to binge eat during the day. And, you are going to eat more healthy food if you plan it out. So the success is in the habits that you make. And then the next one is, I limit my snacks. I don't go to Starbucks every day and get a giant coffee.
With extra whipped cream on top.
Extra whipped cream. Those are good, at times, but.
But Vintage, I feel like I have to interject you here because tusi sade kol aaye, because your mom called me. Joyti ji reached out to me. I don't think your mom must have been too happy जदों तुसी अपनी healthy diet शुरू की थी. I mean, परांठे and extra ghee, मक्खन, ये सारी चीज़ां जो साडे मतलब are part of our culture, our lifestyle. उन्होंने तोनू थोड़ा जा, I'm sure ना करना पैना होने. So how is that affected? Like are you still able to enjoy kind of taking part in those things? You go visit your family and your mom makes you a big plate of paranthas or something.
Yeah.
You still able to enjoy yourself in those situations?
I definitely enjoy those situations, even more now, because I don't worry about, oh God, I'm going to, I'm making my problems worse, or I'm going to gain weight. I know I'm going to get on my bike and I'll probably burn all this off at some point.
Wow.
And I think I indulge much more carefully now, and so when I do indulge, I really enjoy it and I really appreciate it. And so, initially it was, my mom was always, have another roti, have another paratha, have a little bit, all the time. Like
as
our
they
moms
always
do, right?
do, yep.
This is how we show affection, is through food oftentimes.
Yeah.
But, we're all kind of used to now. I'm very kind of disciplined around how much I'm going to eat. I'm only going to eat this many rotis and this much dal, and, and I'm not starving myself, but I'm eating healthy portions. And
that's amazing.
So those are the habits I've sustained, and everybody is kind of used to that now, and they understand. But there are times, that I will eat a lot, and I'll eat way more than I should, but I don't worry about it now, because I know that those are the exception and not my rule, and eventually they'll sort itself out.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that, because that's one of the biggest things, right? खास करके साडी देसी community. You said it perfectly कि ਆਪਾਂ एक दूजे ਨੂੰ प्यार दिखाते हैं, often times खाने दे through कि नहीं पुत खा ले और थोड़ा जा एक और खा ले वरना मेरे नाल नाराज है, something like that. So it's good to see that no, you can do both, right? कि तुसी उस चीज़ दे नाल अपनी enjoyment भी कर सकते हो, परिवार दे नाल जो ਤੁਹਾਡਾ time है खान पीन दा. But if you have something उस चीज़ ਨੂੰ balance करन लई, some kind of physical activity or something that you're doing, that's the way to go. Winty ji, I have another question for you. specifically about cycling. So obviously, one of the weird side effects, I guess we could say, as a result of COVID, and this, is a documented, known thing, apparently very real, but there's a worldwide bicycle shortage. A lot of people are turning to biking, not just obviously, I'm sure, for fitness reasons, but because they don't want to take crowded trains or Ubers. They don't want to, they want to drive less. They maybe are telecommuting or working from home, etc. Have you felt that all of a sudden there's been, this uptick in people caring about what you're doing because biking is kind of having, an upswing? Like there's a higher rate, amount of people interested in biking in general. Has that affected your experience at all, positively, negatively, in any way?
Yeah, that's a good question and a good observation, actually. And I hadn't thought about that in those terms, but there have been people asking me about biking and like, what bike should I get? What equipment should I get? How do I get started? And I never connected the two, but several friends who weren't cyclists have reached out to me, so that I think that has been a bit of a silver lining. People are channeling their efforts in new ways, and we're all tired of sitting at home, and this is in some ways a safe way to go out. I mean, obviously cycling has some inherent risks to be careful of, but it's a way to get out and explore your environment in a way that you can't by a car. And really be in the environment.
And you can really do it at your own pace, right? Even with some of these other physical activities, you kind of have to have a certain level before you can even start, right? But with biking, you get on a bike, and खास करके साडे लिए जो पुराने इंडिया तो आए हुए उन्होंने लेता cycling is, कौन इंडिया च साइकिल नहीं चलांदा सी, right? So इत्थे आके वो चीज थोड़ी expert तौर पे, like you said, you have a fancy road bike, I'm sure, but in India, everyone had a cycle, right? So I think there's kind of a history there. Vinti ji, one more commercial break. Kithe na jao. I have a lot more questions for you, viewers. I'm sure तुसी भी होर गल्लां बातां सुनना चाहते हो विंटी जी नाल, but break तो बाद जारी. Break तो बाद एक बारी फिर से आने दा स्वागत. Happy Friday, happy almost weekend, and of course good news show है तो good news तुहाडे नाल शेयर ही करांगे. Joyti Singh जी नाल गल हो रही है. Joyti जी, welcome back to the program. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, not just about your initiative, about the ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ benefits of not just physical but mental benefits of taking up an activity like this, and ਉਹਦੇ ਜੋ ਅੱਗੇ ਗਾਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ subsequent benefits ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, right? Lifestyle ਤੁਹਾਡਾ change ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਸੁਭਾਅ change ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ for the better. So I'm really glad. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ individually ਕੀਤੀ cycling ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ, but then you started racing as part of certain official races for charities, etc. But I kind of want to talk about where do you see Seva Cycling going? What's the future of this organization? I know you had some stuff in the works and ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ pause ਪੈ ਗਿਆ, but they sound like really good ideas. So ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ entity shuru kiti hai, Seva Cycling. What is the future of this organization?
Yeah, well, I'd love it if it was an organization. Right now, it's just me. But the future is really. I'll go back to what was one of my original ideas, which was to start, a network or a team of cyclists or Seva-inspired cyclists across the country, whoever wants, and we'll get together and do charity rides together as a team. And raise funds for charity, really scale our efforts, and then also scale our representation at some of these events. So my initial goal around this was to create a team, and so that's kind of where I want to go for the future, is help continue building some relationships, fostering cycling in our community, and then when we can get together and ride at events and races again, start doing that as a group, and really help make an impact in so many ways. And I do want to say the word Seva is so significant, right? Like Seva is not just doing charity, but it's selfless, and it's not about us, it's not about me, and it's not about the team, but it's really manifesting all the things that we've been blessed with by our Creator, and returning that to the creator, outside of us. And we are just the channel by which that happens. So, I don't want to, leave the impression that this is something about me, or that I'm doing this for my own ego. There's a tension there between the organizing and the logo and the recognition, but also doing it for the right reason. And so I'm trying to find like-minded cyclists that way, and use this as a way to perform Seva and be able to do that all across the country.
Gee, I'm glad you said that, Vinti ji. So, viewers, tusi sun liya hun. Vinti ji is looking for like-minded cyclists. Agar tusi bhi cycling which kisi na kisi level te involved ho, tusi kuch vadda karna chahte ho, ya bhave locally kuch karna chahte ho, individually hoye, tusi zarur Joyti Singh ji naal contact bana sakde ho. Unna di information screen te likhi hui hai. And of course, the charity that he most recently supported, nokidhungry.org. Othe bhi tusi visit करके अगर तुसी ओदे विच इन्वॉल्व होना तुसी हो सकते हो. विंटी जी, व्हाट्स योर नेक्स्ट राइड? तुसी किसी कॉज ले प्लान कुछ कर रहे हो? एंड लेट्स नॉट फॉरगेट कि तुसी हुने ही इस पास्ट वीकेंड 100 माइल बाइक राइड कर हटे हो. डू यू हैव टू गिव योरसेल्फ सम टाइम टू काइंड ऑफ रिकवर फ्रॉम दैट? हाउ डज दैट वर्क?
Yeah, a wise person will give themselves time to recover from it. And the good thing about these days is that there are no events on the calendar to participate in. So if I wanted to do another one right away, I couldn't. At least not an organized one. So I will spend a couple of weeks recovering and kind of letting my body adapt. And you don't feel like tired, but your muscles are a little bit tighter and things like that. So you have to kind of give your body some time to recover. But my next event is next June, at least on the calendar, and that's up in Lake Tahoe, and that's another 100-mile ride, and that's in support of the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So to raise funds for fighting blood cancers, and help support families who are fighting that. So I've done that ride actually a few times, and that's kind of my regular, now one of my regular charities that I support. So that's in June. I'll probably think of another one. Either I'll do my own project again, or see if there's another event that comes up, and I'll sign up. But right now on the calendar is that one in June.
Wonderful. Well, we wish you the best of luck. Do share. ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਿਓ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਅਗਲੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਔਰ ਐਨੀਥਿੰਗ ਐਲਸ ਇਨ ਬਿਟਵੀਨ. ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੀ, ਵਿੰਟੀ ਸਿੰਘ, founder of Seva Cycling. He's being very humble, but this is a great initiative. Physical fitness, charity, of course, Seva ਦੀ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਲੈਗੇਸੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਤੇ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਪਹੋਲਡ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ. ਵਿੰਟੀ ਜੀ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ. ਐਂਡ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮਮ ਦਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ. ਲਾਈਕ ਯੂ ਸੈਡ, ਯੂਰ ਬਿਗੇਸਟ ਫੈਨ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਨੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕੀਤੀ. So I'm so glad she reached out to me. And, overall, I thank you for kind of sharing with our viewers that, har ek bande di jo physical fitness journey hundi hai, it's different. Tuadi journey shuru hui, with a bike sitting in your garage, right? And that was only 6 years ago, and look at you today.
Yeah.
Tusi jande sade viewers like koi closing messages kehna chahoge, please?
Yeah, no, I would just encourage anybody to, if you have a desire to do something, go do it. And don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about how good or bad you might be. Try it. And you might like it, and it could change your life. So,
it could change your life. It could change the lives of those around you, and you never know, right? Just ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਇਸ charity ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ no kid hungry, no kid, serving the underserved, food insecure population in the United States. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ $1 ਦੀ donation, I think you said 10 meals provide karda, and you've raised $2,100. So that's helping a lot of people. Once again, Minty ji, we are very proud of the work you've done, and we hope to see you doing more of this. Ek bari fir tonu shabashi sade sareyan wallo. And like I said, keep us in the loop for your future projects, and make sure you get some rest, have some parante, take it easy for a little bit. But otherwise, take care of yourself. yourself. Thank you again for joining us. Sat Sri Akal.
Thank you. Sat Sri Akal.
ਐਂਡ ਮੈਂ ਬਾਕੀ ਵਿਊਅਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲ ਹਨ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਰੀਚ ਆਊਟ ਟੂ ਮੀ ਕੋਈ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਕੋਈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੋਕਲੀ ਕੋਈ ਵਧੀਆ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੀ ਲਾਈਨਸ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਓਪਨ ਹਨ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਹੀ ਬੜੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਬਟ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਤੇ ਗੁੱਡ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਹਾਊ ਕੈਨ ਯੂ ਰੈਜ਼ਿਸਟ ਬਟ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਗਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਮਿਲਾਂਗੇ ਫॉर ਨਾਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ